Hello, 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 and welcome to I cannot believe it, the 40th episode of the Collective Spotlight. I have a great show planned. I'm actually nerding out a little bit because my first guest is Jeremy Adams, who is the current writer of The Flash, which anybody who knows me knows that's my go-to character at any company. But also, Jeremy's worked on a ton of other things, including some DC animated films. So it's really an honor to have Jeremy. So I'm going to bring him out so we can talk to him. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, thanks for giving us the time. I reached out to you and I was just like, this guy's so busy, he probably won't even see it. And you were right back doing that.
Well, since the pandemic, it's like my bed is my office is my everything. So, it's not like I have little times cut out here and there because I don't have to drive in traffic, so it's good. It's good. Yeah. I'm glad.
It's awesome. So, this is huge for me because I've always been a Flash fan. The first comic book I ever bought was DC Universe Rebirth, where obviously there was a huge Flash, Barry Allen, Wally West moment in that book that led up to everything we kind of got in Metal and Doomsday Clock and everything. So you are the new kind of father of the Flash right now. You are writing the series, starting the last issue, which was 768. And this week, 769 came out.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your run on The Flash.
Well, I had done a couple of future state titles, and obviously it's been on my bucket list to write comics my entire life. I grew up with comics. My dad drew comics for a little bit in the 70s and 80s. And so it's just kind of ingrained in my DNA. And I was like obsessed with comics. And it's always been literally, I have a life list, and on it is like write comic books. So after I did a couple of those future state, Mike Cotton, who's my editor on these books, he asked me, hey, would you be interested in doing a Flash? And this is kind of what we're going to do. I go, I would love to do like Quantum Leap. And he's like, oh, really? I go, yeah, it'd be fun. We could go through some of the characters. I love Wally a great deal. And I really felt like Wally needed a break. And I just wanted to have some fun. I just wanted to go on some adventures. And then I started, let's leap into these different bodies. Let's have this kind of mystery with the Speed Force, and we'll hopefully lead up to something that's somewhat satisfying. I wanted to go super crazy, and I think they were like, I'll pull it back, and but my main thrust of it and what I want to do with the run is I'm definitely into adventure and comedy and action, and there will be moments of drama for sure, but for a while I just want Wally to have a little bit of fun. Like, I don't want him to get hurt. I'm a little protective right now. So that's kind of where it came out of. And with the issue that's out today, the other big thrill is I was able to co-create a character, Gold Beetle. I'm a huge fan of Blue Beetle, Ted Cord in particular, and then Booster Gold, and then the formative comic growing up was JLI.
Yes.
And that definitely, and you can tell it influences the way that hopefully people receive the book, which is just, it's a fun romp. And so Gold Beetle is this kind of amalgam of both. And I introduced her in Future State Black Adam, and now she's back here. And I hope that she can keep showing up from time to time. Again, to be able to add a toy to the sandbox and like people be like, hey, this is really fun. It's like, that's the most gratifying thing ever, because I'm really glad people enjoy her, and I can't wait I have big plans for her and big things I'd love to do with her, depending on if people keep buying the book and I can keep writing it. So,
and what's really cool about the whole Gold Beetle thing, and again, congratulations, because again, like you said, you get to put a toy in the sandbox.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because it's two characters that have almost like a cult following. There are tons of people who know about Booster Gold and Blue Beetle and Ted Cord specifically, but there's not like, you don't see a Booster Gold book very often. There was one like early 2000s. So like you're kind of getting a chance to not just create a new character, but also bring something back to the limelight that hasn't had a chance to shine really a lot. How have you like approached doing this character while still acknowledging the legacy that is, Booster Gold and Ted Cord Blue Beetle?
Right. So, I mean, just in regards to Booster Gold, like, yeah, there was this great John Frank
Mm-hmm.
run that's fantastic. And then, one of the first books I ever bought myself was a Charlton Ted Cord Blue Beetle. And then I dived deep into Dan Garrett. And then when Jaime Reyes came, I remember being really annoyed because it was like, it is both one of the best Ted Cord books and the most annoying because they shoot him in the head at the end. It's Countdown to
Countdown
Infinite
to
Crisis, I
Infinite.
think. Yeah, and then Wizard Shazam has the scarab and it blows up and it flies out, and then it's like Jaime gets it. And at this time, I was like, just like every fan, like, why are they making a new one? This is stupid. And then you start to realize, oh, Jaime's a really cool character, but Ted and Booster, especially in the JLI, they were so silly and they were so out there. And Booster was much more silly, I think, than Ted. Ted kind of like was an enabler,
Yeah.
And and Len Wein's incredible Blue Beetle run. I'm a big, needless to say, I'm a big fan. But people are doing stuff with those guys, and I think there's plans, But for me, I think of, how do I put it? There's this great moment, if you've ever read the transcripts of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas talking about Indiana Jones when they're coming up with Indiana Jones. And they really wanted to do a James Bond movie and they weren't allowed. And so they came up with Indiana Jones. And that has kind of been one of my guiding stars. It's like, I can't come up with them. I'm not able to write them. So I'm going to come up with something that is similar in spirit. And with Gold Beetle, she is like a zany Doctor Who. She is all over the place. She knows more than she lets on. She's a lot more fun. Everything's kind of fly by the seat of her pants a little bit, but she really knows a lot. And I think she knows more than people are going to give her credit for. But she's super fun. She's never going to take anything super serious. But again, it is shining the light on Blue and Gold. And someday I hope I can write them meeting each other, because she's like the great granddaughter of either side of their family trees, And I love that. I always look at Booster and Beetle sort of like Jay and Silent Bob, like hetero life mates, like they're like the best buddies ever. And in that run with Jeff Johns, it was like Booster, went back to try to help save Beetle. I could talk about Booster and Beetle. Apologies, but I'm new at comics. That's the other thing that's, I'm new. I love to write. They're letting me like learn, on the Flash. And thank goodness these amazing artists and letters and inkers and colorists and everybody come in and make me look good. I'm definitely learning. I'm definitely learning that like in Black Adam Future State, I was like cramming. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do a comic again. Here's everything, and Fernando Passer, like, he just like worked magic. But I'm now like, do not write 7 panels, Jeremy, on your script. Try to limit that. Like try to remember that the page. But luckily, I've lived and breathed comics for years and years and years, so some of it's intuitive. Yeah, if that makes sense. But with the Flash, I'm super excited. I hope people have fun. I've heard some criticism. They're like, wow, this is terrible. I had fun. I was like, oh, okay.
And that's the next thing I want to ask you about, because I'm going to be completely candid with you. Interviewer to interviewee candidness. I'm a Barry Allen guy. When I heard that the book was going from Barry Allen to Wally West, I was very hesitant. Now I do the orders here at the store. So I ordered my normal numbers and I said, let's find out. And, I still bought my copy and everything. Now I sat home kind of as that preconceived notion of, I'm probably not going to like this, and I go and I read it, and you knocked that first issue out of the park. Because while, DC made sure to let everybody know, hey, Wally is taking on the mantle, and Future State kind of pushed at that, and Infinite Frontier pushed on that. You made that very first issue not just feel like a Wally issue. It was a Flash issue. Barry and Wally pretty much shared that scenery, and I thought it was phenomenal. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, writing that first issue and, making sure you had the right characters and tone in there and everything like that?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that editorial said I couldn't do, and talk about being candid. Yeah. I didn't know that Williamson was going to address that in like a page in like the thing. So I had already been doing this thing, and part of there's a couple parts of it. It's like there is kind of this weird reboot right now, right? Where it's like the omniverse and this counts and this doesn't count and whatever. And so one of the things that that DC proper, and I always felt is the thing that I have to be very careful, but the thing that is hard for the Wally legacy is Heroes in Crisis. Obviously, that is a big stumbling block. Whatever. I think it's a well-told story. Whatever. I just think that it's hard. So within that, since Heroes in Crisis to now, there's been certain things that haven't been said, and one of them was Green Arrow addressing the death of Roy, and that interaction with Wally and Barry. And what I knew was, at least my mandate was, that I get to do kind of a bridge of whatever this, I don't want to spoil it, but as the book becomes more Wally centric, I needed to take Barry, and I really wanted to show his protective fatherly nature about Wally, and about how hard it is being a superhero, because the reality is that these are obviously fictionalized, wonderful stories, but there's tragedy and hardship and whatever. So what I was hoping to do is just, even though this is a fun adventure, underlying there are still unresolved issues with all the different heroes, and it is a hard job just in a fictionalized universe. You're not going to always win. You're not going to always whatever. I mean, now that I'm writing Wally, Wally's always going to win. But I know that Barry is moving on to this other assignment. But I really enjoy the anchor of Barry as this Flash right now, and I surprisingly enjoyed writing him, and I really enjoyed writing Ollie, and then the Mr. Terrific component. I'm getting a handle on him because I'm trying to find his own voice that I can like cling to. And who is this guy that's the third smartest person in the DC universe, But I want a lot of fun too, because it's not just always going to be serious. Obviously, in this issue, there's some time in the Flash Museum that has a lot of frivolity to it, and there's a lot of like jabbing and poking and making fun of each other. But anyways, I don't even remember what the question was, but I'm just saying I love Barry, and I would love to be able to. The best example I can give, and maybe nobody will understand this, but do you remember when Chuck Dixon was writing? He was writing Nightwing and Robin, and he was editor-in-chief of like Batman. And when you read Tim Drake's Robin and Nightwing, they would cross over all the time. Yeah. Like Robin would come over to Bloodhaven, and they'd be jumping across like trains and buildings and talking to each other, like big brother stuff. And the same thing would happen the other way. I would love for that to be the norm. That, hey, Barry, I need your help with this. Because I think that was something in the Williamson run I really loved too, was like he would bring in all these Flash families and Flash characters. And there's just such a huge depth. I get all these fans like, you should do this, you should do this. I'm like, I've just started.
I know.
Give me a chance.
You're only 2 issues in, and it's like, where's this guy? And where's this guy? And where's she? But the thing is, you talked about that, how like the Flash, and granted, Williamson brought in Avery very often and Wallace. I mean, he was the whole roster. But it looked to me, you're only 2 issues in, and I've seen the cover for issue, your 3rd issue. But it looks like you're doing your fair share of bringing in the legacy guys too, because it looks like Jay Garrick will make an appearance here sooner rather than later as well. So, like, I mean, you're going through the roster too, right? Max is there. Max Mercury's there. Yeah.
I mean, what's super fun to me is like, okay, we got 676, 79. So 680 is the one after this, and that's really fun. 681 is kind of the make or break, where I feel like everybody's with me or they're not with me. And if they're with me, great, because I've got some banana stuff, later on. I hope they're going to let me do it, because that's something I fight with my editor about all the time. It's like, as much as like I love Flash, but I also feel like he's this character that can literally go anywhere in time and space and dimensions and everything like that. And especially like the Silver Age Flash was really wackadoo when we'll do this and we'll do that, And so and that's very much like me, because I just drink too many energy drinks. I'm all over the place. So my hope is that it's like, yeah, we'll get some stuff with this family and then boom, we're off somewhere else, and doing something wacky. And the cool thing is, the amazing thing is too, especially with the Flash, it's like Williamson and Wade and Jeff Johns and all these people that have come before have just done so much that if I really wanted to, I just throw a dart and be like, oh, I could riff off of that, or I could do this, and what I'm hoping to do is kind of, like if you go see like a classic band or something, it's like I'm hoping I can help, reprise some greatest hits, but at the same time, I hope I can bring some new stuff to the forefront for people to enjoy.
And like you mentioned, with Gold Beetle, you got to already co-create a character.
Yeah.
Another thing that, gosh, it's so crazy to be the comparisons just come naturally.
Right.
When Joshua took over the Flash, it was coming off a Rebirth. It was pretty much a reboot. Right. He was also allowed to create a few characters there early on, which was Godspeed, and that is actually moving on to television and things like that.
Yeah.
So have you reached out to Papa Josh at all and talked about Flash and things like that?
I haven't. I honestly haven't. He has been really nice about like retweeting some of the stuff and complimentary. But this is why I wish Comic-Con was happening.
Yeah.
Because there would be a real chance to like meet these people and like, shake their hand and tell them how much of a fan. That's the problem is I'm way too much of a fanboy. and it happens in animation too. I'm terrible because it's like, I should be cooler about this and I can't. Like we just did, I wrote that Batman Soul of the Dragon movie that came out in January, and the entire voice cast is made up of martial arts stars that I'm like, like I met Mark Dacascos and I'm like, no, you don't understand, man. Like I'm Chris Farley in the elevator. Like, remember that time you were in that movie called Crying Freeman? Remember that?
Oh,
it's like, I just felt like such an idiot. But I think that's why I just try to remain a fan. Like I never want to get jaded. And then, like I said, I'm still really new to comic books. And it's hard, and it's a lot of work, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it because it's a dream come true. The Flash stuff, like I said, I really would like to talk to Josh in a meaningful way. Like I would love to see what he's doing with his stuff and see if there's a way I could be like, hey, how's it going? If you needed Wally to do anything, just let me know. Or
I mean, I'm partially biased because again, those were the first books I got into as a young adult, reading Josh. But I do believe Josh is one of the better world builders out there in comics right now. I mean, what he was able to do with the Flash. I'm looking forward to what he'll be able to do in Robin, what he was able to do in Justice League Odyssey when he wrote just the first story arc in that. I thought was phenomenal. So I mean, it's awesome. But the thing is, I see those similarities, and it's funny that you guys have not even talked because I see some similarities as I get there.
There's that weird thing. There's just some of those weird things in comic books in general where you've read them for so long, and then suddenly you put something in there, and somebody will go like, "Oh my gosh, it's a callback to whatever," and I'm like, "It is!" Like I totally forgot. I totally forgot. I thought that was original. That was totally not original.
I hate the term, when people use the term original to make it seem like, because first of all, how long have we been doing media like this? Original ideas, very few and far between at this point.
Right.
You're good enough to make what seems like a already once done idea feel original. You're doing your job, you're doing your job.
Right. That's my job. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and your job is you got two jobs because you mentioned earlier how you also have written. You mentioned the Batman Soul of the Dragon.
Yeah.
You also have Justice Society World War II, literally dropping I think next week.
Yeah, next week. I'm super excited. I co-wrote that with my friend Megan. We both worked on Supernatural together, and it is It is a fantastic, like, World War II movie. I think it's the first time Justice Society's ever been in animated form, which is really thrilling. And Butch, Jeff, who is the director, and Butch, who's the supervising producer, Butch has worked. I mean, he had worked on Batman the Animated Series, and he's just this character, like this unbelievable character. But he is so steeped in cinema, and the way that he presents World War II is great. And what's great about this is that it feels very adult and weighty, and it also feels there's some twists that are really great. And it's different. It's different than when, I got to work with Sam Liu and Bruce Timm on Batman Soul of the Dragon, which is, a whole other thing. And having a relationship with Bruce, which is hilarious, and meeting these people that, have spent years dissecting these characters that we love. So yeah, I mean, the animation world, it's weird to me. What's really strange, you think there would be a lot more crossover from animated DC property and comic books, and there's not as much as I thought.
Yeah.
Like, it's like people will go like, hey, I don't know who this Jeremy Adams is. And I'm like, I've been writing DC stuff, I swear. It's just been animated. It's just been animated. I've done a lot of Lego DC movies.
Well, I was just going to say, I checked your IMDb because, again, I reached out to you as the Flash writer, and I'm like, I want this guy on my show to talk about Flash. And then after we talked, I saw you had your IMDb there, and I'm like, let me check out dude's IMDb. And, okay, I see this really new movie that's coming out next week. I'm like, cool, he's getting his feet wet. And then I slide down, and I'm like, Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go, which I watched like 3 months ago. He did that, and there was the Soul of the Dragon. You also did a ton of the Lego movies, including the Flash Lego movie, which is a favorite of mine again. So you had experience with the Flash.
Yeah.
The Justice Society movie, if I'm not mistaken, is actually going to feature 2 Flashes, right?
That's right. Barry and Jay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of like Flash. I mean, the Flash DTV I wrote with Jim Krieg, who's my mentor in animation. I think that was like my second like direct-to-video movie. And it's great because I have 2 kids, so it's awesome that I've made all this content for them. And then it was really funny. I had done all this kid content, and then the first adult thing I had come out was Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, which, if you've seen, is like the most violent thing ever. And we were like begging them, please, from the writer of Lego Flash, from the producer of Lego Aquaman, from the director of Lego Shazam comes Mortal Kombat. Like, I really was like, we should do that. That'd be awesome because it's so violent, And then things kind of changed. It was like that came out and did really well. And then Soul of the Dragon came out and was really well received. And then this one. So it's kind of like I'm moving away from some of the younger stuff. But with the Flash book, I was really surprised. It's like rated U13 or something on the book. And I was like, really? Like, I'm literally making this book as kind of like, you're not going to get in trouble if your mom catches you to read this.
Absolutely.
Because when I was a kid, if you rented a movie, without doubt, the moment there was ever a nudity scene or something, your mom would like totally walk in and you'd be like, I swear to you, Mom, like this is blood sport. That's Van Damme's butt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Fighter movie, and Jean-Claude Van Damme is just giving terrible lines the whole time. I swear.
I swear this is what it is. And it's the same thing with comics I grew up with. It was like, McFarlane and Liefeld and Jim Lee, they were drawing these beautiful women. If my mom caught like Mary Jane Watson is not the girl next door, or J. Scott Campbell or something. You're like, oh yeah, listen, I know it's called Danger Girl, Well,
when you got the Danger Girl, you don't get.
So yeah, I want this to be something fun that everybody can. It's never going to get. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie. There are going to be moments that are a little heavy, maybe, but that's also me as the Flash writer trying to get my feet under me and trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to write this? How do I want to write Wally? And I know that there's always going to be. I swear to you, one of the funniest things that I get it a lot. I got it a lot with Scooby-Doo. I got it a lot with Supernatural. Like that was a whole other level of like both love and hatred. And then and it's with comic books too. And my feed could be, it's the greatest comic book I've ever read, and the next one is like, you should kill yourself because it's the worst comic I've ever read.
Awful. And it's just like, wow, how do I mesh those two opinions together?
Right. And as a storyteller, you just have to kind of go, I have to just tell the story I'm telling, and as long as people are buying it, that's all I can do, because I have to just tell the story I can tell.
Yeah. No, and it's been awesome, man. Because like, again, being the guy that does the orders, and also being a guy who has his ear to the ground with other retailers, there's been a lot of, I guess, negative press for DC in lately, with just different moves, and it's all business. At the end of the day, none of this hurt comic readers, but everybody forms their opinion. So I knew that locally, a lot of stores cut down their DC numbers just, because they were, whatever reason, protecting their investment, whatnot. And during that time, I said, that's not the fault of the customer. I shouldn't lower my numbers. So I went high on all these Future State or Infinite Frontier books.
Yeah.
And I don't have a single copy of
That's
what
awesome.
was in Infinite. Yeah. So no copies of Flash 768, no copies of Batman. Like, we have sold out. I've sold out of Crime Syndicate, man. And,
That's awesome.
Andy Schmidt's Crime Syndicate has been selling out for us. So I really love that they're bringing in fresh blood, like you guys, first of all, and Andy Schmidt and everything like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the fans are giving the books a try. And we offer returnability in our store. So like, if a person were to pick up Flash 768 and didn't like it, they can bring it back and we credit them. Nobody's brought any Infinite Frontier books back. Like, it's not happening. So it's really awesome. But Jeremy, one of the other things, as I go through your IMDb, I want to talk to you about two properties that you had a chance to
get it.
One, I want you to talk to me a little bit about DC Superhero Girls. Because
which one?
Well, just in general, the property as a whole, because I feel like that is one of the best things DC has done in a long time, because it allows people to share the characters they grew up with their younger ones, specifically their younger daughters, and still have a young Flash or a young Wonder Woman and everything like that. And I mean, I saw when that stuff was on Cartoon Network, that show and those books were phenomenal. Can you talk to me just a little bit about what you experienced when you worked on with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically the first thing is, when I found out my wife was pregnant, I was like, oh, I hope it's a boy. I mean, I'll be honest. I hope it's a boy. I can play lightsabers with this boy. I can do this stuff. And I had a friend of mine who slapped me in the face and like, you can do that with girls. I was like, what? And it was like the scales fell from my eyes. And I have two girls. And so the first girl I had, it was like, she's the nerdiest thing ever. And so when they said, hey, Jeremy, basically what had happened was they came to me with Lego DC Superhero Girls. And they said, the reason I got the job is because I'm known for being a really fast writer. Okay. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do this. And I did it, and it was well received. And so I did another one after that. So just the Lego DC Superhero Girls brought me into that world. And I knew that Shay Fontana was doing the DC Superhero Girls, the regular show, and she was also doing the books. And I knew the books were a behemoth, and I saw all the merch. Honestly, the amount I got paid to do that movie, I probably spent on merchandise for my daughter for the DC Superhero Girls. And then Shay moved on to other things. And so they were looking for new story editors to come help take over. And it was me, my friend Patrick, and my friend Joelle. And so we took over that show that was like these little shorts that they were doing. The thing is, my kids went bananas, and they still asked to watch DC Superhero Girls. They still read the little graphic novel, like the little collections, because I bought them. What I love about them is they really are all ages books. I mean, they're really kid books. They're really like when you go to the store and you'd see those Disney books or Archie books or whatever. But it was like, as a parent, I knew I wasn't going to get, I wasn't going to be upset by anything in these books. And so these kids are reading them, and they're getting this amazing knowledge of the DC universe in a way, and it gets them more invested. And that's the thing I always have with comic books anyways, because there's kind of a crisis in comic books, right? Where it's like you know, when I was a kid, it was 75 cents. Then it was $1.25. I was like, what was the thing that Dan Didio did that was like holding the line at $1.20? It was $2.75. It was like,
yeah, he held the line a few times, but
and then it was like a week later. Never mind, no line.
Holding the line at $2.99.
But like I was like, you know, part of the problem is, you know, bookstores, specialty stores, you know, because when I was growing up, you had a spinner rack at every store. Every store you go in, Mom, I'll be at the spinner. I'll be at the comics. Come get me. You know, I could read the comics. I could do whatever. She'd buy me one to shut me up in the cart, whatever. And those are disappearing. And so, because I feel like the way you get more people into a comic store is just get more people invested in comic books. And I thought the DC Superhero Girls was an incredible way of getting people interested and invested in the DC universe. And to me, I have never heard it doing bad.
No,
it just seems like it's always done well. And if I'm going into the comic book store, you know, the first thing I do is like, I wonder if I can get something for my daughter. And I immediately go to a kids section and I'm like, oh, what do they have? You know? And I get them something because you know, you want to pass it down. You want people to share it because of the joy and the fun and the adventure that you had growing up, you know, playing with this stuff and listening to the stuff. I mean, one of my whole things, I'm rambling, and I told you I drank a lot of Red Bull, but like one of the things is, one of the joys that I've had is like, when I'm really like excited about something, it's generally somebody's made me imagine. Like when I was a kid, I would go out and play Green Lantern and I'd play Flash and I'd play Superman. You know, it'd be cold outside and you try to do the super breath and like, you know, or whatever. And that is the fact that somebody had the power out there to help me imagine and play. And so that's what I hope to do, is hope to give kids and people and adults something else to do so that they can go, oh, I want to tell a story. You know, the greatest compliment would be like 20 years from now, somebody going like, oh, do you remember that crazy writer, Jeremy Adams, and he did this thing? Oh, I remember that. And I took it and I did this thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's the best thing you could ever ask for.
Like in 20 years from now, somebody saying, you remember Gold Beetle, man?
Yeah.
And like, you know, that would be the justification.
Dude, I'm telling you, the fact that there's like fan art, I was like, what? You know, it's like the greatest thing ever.
This is so awesome. Jeremy, unfortunately we're up for our time, but I will definitely so actually the last question I have for you, because I meant to ask it way earlier. Best that you can tell us without getting in trouble. How long is your how long is your Flash run planned for?
I will be I mean, as far as I know, I'll be writing the Flash until somebody says he's terrible and or the sales you know, reflect that. So I'm one of these people that like, no, I'm just getting started. No, I'm just getting started. You know, here's 6 months, you know, let me do more.
I would love to tell my viewers is after the first story arc of Flash ends, I would love to get you back on so we can talk about how your first arc kind of went and then we can talk everything like that. So
we should probably talk about it because it's going to be itchy. So we'll see.
I'm already preparing for 71, as you told me.
So. Okay. All right.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Again, it's Jeremy Adams. He wrote The Flash on the shelves technically today with a first full appearance, I think, of Gold Beetle here.
Yeah.
So she showed up in Future State Black Adam, but now she's here in The Flash. Pick it up. We have the A covers and some B covers, which I absolutely love, that B cover right there. But Jeremy, thank you so much for your time, man. Best of luck with the book. Best of luck with Justice Society, which premieres next week, actually.
Yes. I appreciate your time. And everybody go buy it. It's great.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We'll see you again soon, man. Take it easy.
All right. Bye.
So special thanks to Jeremy Adams, who is doing The Flash. My next guest was going to be on my show last week. Some things came up. We brought him right back on here. He's actually been on here a couple times already for Swamp Thing. No further introduction. Ram V, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, and sorry about last time.
No, hey man, you're all good. I told my people saw me trying to stall for a little bit, and then I was like, oh, well, you know, if Ram hits me up, we'll have him next week, and it worked out because the book actually. I now physically am holding it, so it works
Excellent.
out. So, Ram, you've been on our show before talking about Swamp Thing, some other DC things that you've worked on, but this time you're here for The Many Deaths of Lila Starr.
Yep.
new this week from Boom. Can you talk a little bit about the book and tell people, what the premise kind of is, what they can expect when they pick it up tomorrow?
Sure. Sometime in the near future, humanity is about to invent a way to live forever. And once that happens, the powers that be, far above the clouds and the silver tower up in the sky, decide, well, we don't really have much work for the god of death, so we're going to fire her and send her to live out her retirement as a mortal on Earth. And so she gets called in, she gets fired, she gets sent down to Earth to live amongst the mortals. And therein begins our story. It goes pretty wild from there. It's expansive in scope, but I suppose thematically, it's a story about life and death, and how God may learn to find her humanity by living among the people that she has been carting away to the Netherlands for so many years.
And what I love about that premise, correct, I mean, so what genre do you kind of try to say that Many Deaths of Lila are? Because to me, and it's granted, it doesn't sit in just one genre to me, but I feel like slice of life is kind of a part of it. It's not entirely what it is, but it's her slice of life. She is very different, but I feel like that's where you were going with this. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if it's a genre, you could say it leans away from fantasy and towards magic realism.
There we go.
Which is the idea that things are mostly real and we're dealing mostly with the real world, but there is this one or two elements that are magical and weird, and because of that, we're looking at real world consequences for real people and real characters through this little bit of weirdness and supernatural stuff thrown in.
So, Ram, it seems to me like supernatural, a little bit of fantasy, magic, those things are in your DNA. Because, with Swamp Thing, when you did Justice League Dark, things like that, like there's always a little bit of supernatural and a little bit of whimsical magic in everything you write. What were what were the comic books that you got, or the media that you got into originally? Like, what inspires you in some of the things that you kind of write nowadays as an adult?
Well, if I list a few comics, you were 100% going to go, that makes complete sense. Like, I got into comics for a second time, not as a kid, but as a older, like 19, 20-year-old kid. I got into it from a writing perspective through reading Sandman. So Sandman brought me in, and I wasn't the kind to go like, okay, let me find, this character or that character. I would follow authors. Okay. So it's because I loved Sandman, I read everything Neil Gaiman did in comics. Okay. And pretty much everything Neil Gaiman did is supernatural, fantasy, magic, whimsy in comics. And then I kind of followed the Vertigo line from there. I went on to Alan Moore, went on to Morrison, Ennis, Ellis. So pretty much that entire Vertigo Hellblazer lineup.
That, and you are correct. Sounds right. Sounds right.
Yeah.
If somebody would have said, Danny, what do you think Ram grew up reading? I'd say probably the Morrisons and the Gaimans and everything. But no, it's awesome because your writing style. And while, like, yes, if you've read those guys, you can very well be like, all right, he's a little bit like that. But there aren't many comics like that currently on shelves. It's very unique still to the current or that previous era. Do you hear that sometimes? I know you haven't been to con. There hasn't been a con in over a year. But when you talk to fans and things like that, do you hear about how your writing style is a little bit more unique in a positive way, obviously? But I feel like it is unique to what's going on right now.
I mean, to be honest, my endeavor is always to be unique. I don't want to, I don't want to put out a book if I feel like there's already another book that does the same job as mine. I want to put out a book that each of those books should feel like an experience. In fact, if anything, the best compliment I like to hear is when people pick up my book and they go like, this is nothing like Blue and Green. Like, this is nothing like horror. This is nothing like Catwoman. This is nothing like Swamp Thing. I enjoy doing that, and so hopefully, I'll only take up projects when I feel like I have something creatively unique to offer to that book. Yeah, and it's nice to hear, obviously, people going like, I think someone said the second coming of late 80s Vertigo is what they said about me. And not to put a too fine a point on it, but when Warren Ellis, when he was doing his newsletter before the whole stuff, when he read These Savage Shores, I think he said, this is the most like prime Vertigo thing I've read since prime Vertigo. So yeah, I mean, I wear my influences on the sleeve. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. And one of the things I think, and actually, talk to me a little bit on Many Deaths of Lila Starr. I was flipping through it, right?
Yeah,
the art is beautiful, but another thing, and it's always seldom talked about in books.
Show us a little bit of art.
So first of all, the opening page is phenomenal.
It is gorgeous. Philippe's work is amazing.
But and I'm trying. Let me make sure. Okay, so And World Designs did your lettering. The lettering on this is again different. Yeah. I would not expect that anything different from you, but it goes with the story. I think the lettering, while being a very different font and everything like that, it goes with the story. It feels very, I hate to say 90s, but like in a positive way. It feels from an era that we're not at. Was that done? I mean, I know you're just the writer kind of, but do you get a say in how the lettering's going to look and the layouts, designs? I mean, how far does the writer go when putting together the book?
Well, I think in comics, it's like you have to be a band member. You can't be just a vocalist or a guitarist or a drummer. You have to be songwriter, producer, band member, all of those things. So I am involved, and World Design, and specifically Darren Bennett, who did the lettering. They sent over a few options, and I looked at them, and I felt like this lettering style was sharp and witty. It exudes a wittiness, and so I felt that. And then I also felt like it was also delicate. It was also whimsical. It was also funny a little bit. And this was the first time I was doing humor in a comic. I don't usually do lighthearted, humorous stuff. This is the first time I was doing it, and so I felt like I needed a font that was equally kind of weird and humorous and funny to look at a little bit. Yeah,
and that's exactly what I got from it. Because like, while depending on what line I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that's extra funny because of the way it is. But it also stands out. Again, like we talked about, why do it if you're not going to do it a little bit different, right? So, Rem, I need to get inside your head a little bit, because you're writing Many Deaths of Lila Starr.
Yeah.
You're writing Swamp Thing. You're writing Catwoman. I might have missed one in there, but those are like the 3 monthly books at least that you're doing.
Justice League Dark.
Justice League Dark. There you go. So they're very different books. Very different characters. I mean, you go from Catwoman to Swamp Thing, very different. How do you approach writing those things and then putting yourself in that headspace? Because I'm just guessing. But I'm guessing you can't just go from writing, an issue of Swamp Thing to then, boom, I'm going to write an issue of Catwoman, because that's a different headspace. Is that correct?
I mean, I do that, but because I have to do that. There's no sorry, I'm switching headspaces. You have to wait for a week. I try to write as many of the same kinds of things that I can. So I try to write 2 scripts of Catwoman before I had to switch to Swamp Thing. But schedules are unforgiving, and no matter how cleanly I want to start, I end up juggling like 5 things at the same time. But the thing that helps me is to read and watch and listen to things that are in the same space as what you're doing. Now, I have heard a lot of sort of contradictory advice to this. People are like, oh yeah, if you're writing crime, don't read crime books because they'll influence you. Influence is good. They should influence you. And then you should be conscious of that influence and do something different anyway. But I find that to be very useful, because you want me to write proper retro Hollywood crime, I've got my playlist. I've got my Michael Mann films all loaded up. All I have to do is go in and you know, put on Miami Vice or put on Manhunter or one of those amazing films, and instant mood. Like I could even pause halfway, and I'll have like a ton of ideas that I could put into the next issue. Same thing with reading. You know, I'll read crime. I'll read Raymond Chandler. I'll read, you know, like pulp 80s noir crime books when I'm writing that. For Swamp Thing, I'll read Ligotti. I'll read Vandermeer. Yeah. So I have my list of influences that I think play into the voice that I need for each of these books.
Yeah, but that's nice. That's nice to get that back behind the scenes kind of what gets you in those headspaces. Because again, like you said, the deadlines, you can't wait a week. So I guess you have to kind of artificially make it happen. And
so
that's
you have to, the best rule is if you're going to output something, you have to constantly be inputting something as well.
I like it. That's why this guy can handle writing so many books. You guys hear this? He's already thinking ahead. I like it. With The Many Deaths of Lila Starr, first of all, actually, I didn't even get a chance to talk to the people. Beautiful foil Mac cover. I thought it was really cool that you guys went with.
So shiny, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I love it.
Like I love this thing. But so Many Deaths of Lila Starr. How is this story? How do you have it broken down? Is this a miniseries, a maxi, ongoing? How do you have it laid out?
Well, it's supposed to be a 5-issue mini to start with. And the way it's laid out, without giving away too much, is built into the title.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the issue yet, but if you read the issue, it ends a certain way. It ends in an unexpected way, and that becomes the formal structure within which these stories are told.
Oh. Okay.
And so yeah, each issue is a question of life and death.
I like that. I like that, and I
that
wouldn't
makes sense.
expect anything different. I wouldn't have expected anything different from you. The other thing I love when I do these interviews, especially with indie books, indie creators, I love when I ask the question, "How many issues is this supposed to be?" And I get the answer, "Well, it's supposed to start off as this many," because it lets me think if the sales are good and if Boom is a great publisher, if everything goes well, you very well could get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, if the cards play out.
Yeah, it could, and also, I mean, it's from my experience so far. Like Boom would love to do books, and they're super happy with how this has turned out. But it's also a question of like, do I have more story to tell? Do I have something to say with it? Because by the time you've read issue 1 to 5, yeah, you've got 5 stories in those sort of monthly installments. But I've also said something important through telling you those 5 stories, and I don't want to weaken that because I went, hey, I can tell issue 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, why do that when I can just go, okay, here's a new story. Start with another number 1.
All right. I like it. Now, talk to me a little bit about working with Boom, man. We as a retailer have nothing but good things to say about Boom over the last couple of months. Yeah. I mean, they have stepped it up. I mean, since the pandemic, they have stepped it up. They've helped retailers. They've helped stores. But talk to me as being a creator, getting to work with them.
I mean, my decision to work with them was largely based off of one person, which is Eric Harburn. I didn't know anyone at Boom other than Eric. And in my sort of couple of interactions with him, I got the sense that like this guy gets story. He gets why stories work. And so once we had our initial conversation, I was like, you know, I'd love to work on a book with you. And it turned out to be this one. And then once I got to know everyone else at Boom, you know, Philip Sabeck and the marketing team and all the guys, they're super organized, which is great for me as a creator because I can then just focus on doing what I do best, and I know that everything else is taken care of. And that's an unusual thing. It should be more usual, but that's an unusual thing in comics. And so my experience with working with them has been great so far. Yeah. and I expect to be doing more there as well.
That's awesome because again, like we said, we've been very happy with Boom. They've
Right.
done so much for retailers. It's phenomenal. Can't say enough good things about all those.
And those covers, man, I love Boom's taste in getting covers done. Yeah.
And then they hook it up. I know, you know, it's hit or miss on how people feel about incentives, but I do love that they hook it up with not just one incentive, but a few. You know, there's a one per store, there's a 1 in 25, a 1 in 50, 1 in 100. I love it because it allows us to work with the book. You know, we can maybe order, if you're a small store, you can still order 25 and get a bonus. You're a bigger store, you can order 100 and get a bonus. It's great. I really love it. The other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about your writing style. I noticed, especially in Many Deaths of Lila Starr, there's a lot of dialogue. And I feel like when you talk to comic fans in 2020, 2021, you get one of two things. You get, I loved it. It was a quick read. I was able to go through it. I loved it. But then you also have the people, I hated it because I was able to read through. It only took me 5 minutes to read. There was like 10 word bubbles in there. I feel like you definitely make sure to go in and give the dialogue and the exposition and everything like that. But do you feel like there is a balance to making sure a comic book isn't too wordy, or do you think we're getting dangerously lazy and don't want to read sometimes?
Well, I don't think we're getting lazy and don't want to read. I put the blame for this squarely on creators' shoulders, to be honest.
Okay.
Like I never blame readers for anything. Comic books work as a medium because they do something very specific. They put lots of things next to each other. No other medium does this. No other medium works by juxtaposition. Comics, the fundamental way this medium works is it takes object A and puts it next to object B, and all of a sudden there's a relationship between A and B, and your brain goes, that's a story. So same thing applies to when you're using words. You're putting words next to an image, or on top of an image, or inside an image when you're doing sound effects. And so that's how comics work. So if your words are far too wordy compared to the image you've put next to it, or if they're not enough compared to the image you put next to it, both those things are going to feel off. So there's no such thing as too wordy or you know, not enough words.
Yeah.
There's a reason silent issues work. There's a reason you could go to a Mike Mignola Hellboy page and he's got one dialogue balloon in there, but you've still taken the time to read everything because the visuals are doing that work there. Now, if you come across a comic book page that has two, you know, words on it, and the visuals aren't making you slow down and look at it, then that comic has failed. Similarly, if you're looking at a comic where the visuals are making you wait for a really long time, but you're not really engaged in terms of storytelling and there's not enough words on there to engage you, then that book has failed as well. So pacing and juxtaposition are the keys to making good comics. People read my Swamp Thing and they go like, oh man, slow burn, lots of density. Yeah, because I want to write it like that. You don't get the density comment with my Catwoman stories because I want Catwoman to feel faster paced, like everything is happening, popping off, you know. And so I think that is a question of creative intent rather than reader ability or appreciation.
Okay. All right. And this is why I love having you on the show, because you are clearly a writer's mind. You know, I mean, you give the great answers. I mean, clearly you're great at panels, I'm sure, when the conventions come and everything like that. But yeah, it's like when I interview you, you don't just give me the answer. You kind of draw it out and explain it, which is what I hope all the viewers are getting out of this too.
Yeah. I mean, I always hated when I was trying to write. I always hated when people would come in and give me like really silly sounding advice, like write every day. Like, yeah, write every day, but I could be writing crap every day, and that wouldn't help, you know.
Yeah.
So I want to try and take that kind of advice and really break it down. So people are like, oh, not more than 28 words per balloon, not more than 100 words on a page. No, that's all the wrong stuff to say. You have to get to the reason behind why people say that.
That's awesome. We talked about the layouts of the book,
Yeah.
but I didn't get a chance to give. Is it Philippe? Philippe?
Philippe. Yeah.
I didn't give a chance to give Philippe his due credit because the art in this book is amazing, and
Philippe.
it's a different kind of amazing because, like how you explained, it's supposed to be a little bit mythic, magical, and everything like that. And you flip through this book and you feel it. You immediately feel it while still being grounded. And I mean, can you talk to me a little bit about getting to work with him?
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't really seen Philippe's work before this book, and Eric sent me a few images, and I looked at it, and it had that quality. And I'm going to describe it in this weird way, and then you'll immediately get it. It feels like there is a child's enthusiasm in the drawing.
Yeah.
It feels like there is a childhood whimsy in all the drawings. There's this kind of electric, nervous energy to all of it. And I saw that, and I went like, yes, this is perfect. This is who we want on the book. And so Philippe gets that, and there is that sort of infused with life feeling about all of his art. And to me, Mumbai feels like that. And so it just felt like a perfect match. It helped that Philippe had also been to India in his travels, and so it wasn't a stretch getting him to imagine what it would be like to live in the city.
That's awesome, and the colors are great too. And I see that in the credits, you guys technically have color assists by Ines. Does that mean that Philippe was doing some of the colors?
Yeah, Philippe did his own colors with I imagine flatting assists from Ines Amaro. And yeah, I think he's got a very specific vision as to what he wanted this to feel like. I think he wanted a little bit of bubblegum pop, a little bit of magic, a little bit of the warmth of some place like Mumbai. And so I think you get all of that. And I think the colors are an integral part of why this book feels so full of life and whimsical.
One last thing I want to ask you, just because you mentioned it right there. The setting of the book. What made you want to set it over there rather than, I mean, granted, you can set it in a fictional place, you could set it, I mean, the possibilities are endless, but I am intrigued. I want to get the answer of
I grew up in Mumbai. So I'm from the city. I grew up there. I lived there till I was 18 or so. Okay. So I spent quite some time there. Is a place that is very dear to my heart, and I know it in a way that only people who've lived in a city for 18 years can know it. And also, in relation to the subject matter of the book, death is such a cultural artifact, right? So the way Americans think about death is very different from the way people in Africa think about death. The way Christians think about death is different from the way Buddhists think about death. The way rich people think about death is very different from the way poor people think about death. And so death can be so many different things. So our death is the way as reflected through the eyes of this city, if you will. So I wanted to ground this concept on death, of death in the reality of this city that I know.
So one thing that I'm always talking about, because I am a Latino Hispanic, man working in a comic store, Jaime Reyes. I love him to death, but he doesn't get books all the time. So just talk to me a little bit about the fact that you get to feature a place that you've lived, you've grown up, you have friends, family, that you get to feature that in a comic book. And again, it's a place that isn't featured very often in media in Hollywood and things like that. I mean, they have their own things there, but we don't see it here in North America. So talk to me a little bit about getting to do that in a mainstream book like Boom.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason I'm able to do that. So to be honest, like first book I self-published was Black Mumba, set in Mumbai as well, black and white crime noir. I pitched it around, no publisher would touch it. And they said, it's set in Mumbai. We don't know who's going to read this. We don't know if it's going to sell. And it was Chris Staros, who was the publisher at Top Shelf at the time, who said, look, man, you're going to have a hard time finding a publisher because no one knows. It's not your fault. This book is good. No one knows where to put this book in their publishing lineup. So why don't you self-publish it? And that's what I did. Mm-hmm. And when we self-published it, we raised think £13,000 to print the book, and to be honest, like after that, it was easy to pitch to publishers because I go, look, my last book raised this much money. We had so many subscribers, and the stories are good, and it's still being talked about. So I think part of the reason you don't see books, or it's difficult to do books in places where people haven't read or people aren't familiar with, is because publishers are averse to taking risks. Rightly so. So as a creator, it's your job to push them to take that risk, because as a creator, your entire job is to take risks. If you're not taking risks, you're probably telling boring stories, you know? The other thing that works in my favor is I've traveled a lot. And one of the big realizations I had when I traveled is that, you know, I've never lived in the places that you've lived. But I bet you if we sat down across the table with a drink in hand and we talked to each other for 2 hours, you and I will have some fundamental truths that we hold to be the same. And you and I will have some fundamental fears and desires that, you know, like I worry about my mom and dad in the way I imagine most other people worry about their health. I want to provide for my family in the same way I imagine other people want to provide for their families. And so there are universal truths that apply to everyone. And stories are your universal truths having a conversation with my universal truths. Like when I write a story, I'm not trying to communicate to you. I'm trying to put down on paper something that I feel. And then when you read it, you're taking what I put down on paper, but you're reading it in a way that it applies to you. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even though we're not talking directly, the story is doing the talking for us.
Yeah.
And so if you can write it in a way where you're able to convey what lies underneath your fundamental truths, it doesn't matter where you come from, you will pick up that story. Like it doesn't matter if you're from New York or if you're from Mumbai. Everybody loves E.T.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like when Black Panther came out, it ran to full house theaters in India, and those kids have never been to Africa again.
Yeah.
So
but that's awesome, because and that's what I love to talk about, people from the different backgrounds and everything, about how they get into comics and everything, because it's different for all of them. I didn't buy my first comic book until I was 24 years old, you know, and that's a product of my parents and everything like that. But I think it's awesome. Ram, one last question I'm going to ask you, and it's just because when I talked to you last time, we were talking about Swamp Thing during the Future State time.
Yeah.
And you were telling me how you were getting to go to do the ongoing Swamp Thing, or how it was technically a maxi series at the time. And then you mentioned now if it's received well, we could make it into an ongoing. We're 2 issues on the shelves. A 3rd has been ordered. Have you heard any word on if it's going well enough that we could get more?
I'll put it this way. I've heard word that the sales are far beyond anything that was accounted for. So that's a good thing.
That's good. We sold out of number 1s, and we ordered super high because we had interviewed you and our fans loved it.
Awesome.
And we still sold out, and we got just a few number 2s left.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad. And all of you hearing that they've got a few number 2s left, you know what to do.
Well, and we're working on getting Mike to come sign in the summer, since he's on the other side of the state from us.
Yeah, great.
So
yeah, I mean, Mike's a trip. He'll be amazing to have there.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think the series is only going to get stronger from here on. So I'm excited to see how people react to it.
Awesome. We have a lot of excited people here. Thank you again, Ram, for coming on. Thank you for your time. The book this week, The Many Deaths of Lila Starr. Technically, Catwoman is already on the shelves. I have that out there. But Many Deaths of Lila Starr, we have all the covers, man. We went all in on this. We have the foil max. We have the incentives. And we have this beautiful A cover that I think is really the get. This is what everybody should get. But thank you so much for your time, Ram. I really appreciate it, man. Whenever the next project is, we'll definitely get you back on if you're available.
Sounds good.
Take it easy, man. Thank you for your time.
Take it easy. Bye.
Thank you very much to my second guest, Ram V. He is the writer of The Many Deaths of Lila Starr, which is an awesome book. I can't wait to go home and read it tonight. I will let all of you guys know tomorrow how I liked it if you guys come into the store. But this has been the 40th episode of the Collective Spotlight. We're just 10 away from episode 50, which clearly means it has to be 100 pages and cost $9.99. So I'll let you know about that exclusivity. It'll probably be a one per store. Who knows? But yeah, we will be back tomorrow with our $1 happy hour auction. Steven already has a couple of things that he's shown off. I think this is a first, but I think this is going to be on the auction done by Sabian right here in the store. Gold outline. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Jeremy Adams and Ram V. The books are Flash and Many Deaths of Lila Starr. Check them out here at the Collective, and you guys have a good one.